Can a sudden surge in military spending really change the balance of power in South Asia? Or does a 15% jump in India's defense budget mask deeper weaknesses that money alone cannot fix? With $85.4 billion now earmarked for defense and regional tensions still raw after a setback involving Pakistan, the stakes stretch far beyond accounting lines, touching deterrence, diplomacy, and the credibility of power itself. If this budget shift succeeds, India could accelerate weapons acquisition and signal resolve to rivals. If it fails, it risks exposing structural limits while inflaming neighbors. If it escalates, South Asia's fragile stability could tilt toward miscalculation. That is why this moment matters not only for New Delhi but for Islamabad, Beijing, Washington, and the wider Indo-Pacific order watching closely. To understand the weight of this decision, you have to trace India's defense posture back decades. Since independence, India has balanced continental threats from Pakistan and China while managing internal security across vast terrain. Wars in 1947, 1962, 1965, 1971, and 1999 shaped a military built for large-scale mobilization, but also burdened by slow procurement and political caution. Over time, platforms aged faster than they were replaced, leaving gaps between ambition and readiness. The current government frames the increase as a corrective moment. The announced budget represents about 1.9% of gross domestic product, still below the 2% benchmark often cited by military planners. Within that total, a 21% rise is directed toward new weapons procurement, signaling intent to modernize aircraft, armor, and precision systems. On paper, this is one of the sharpest single-year increases in recent memory. Yet analysts point out that much of India's existing hardware struggles with availability. Fighter squadrons operate below sanctioned strength. Naval assets face maintenance delays. Army inventories rely on platforms designed decades ago. In that context, additional funding does not automatically translate into usable power. Procurement cycles are long, domestic production faces bottlenecks, and imported systems require integration that can take years. The regional trigger for this announcement matters. India's leadership moved after a significant setback involving Pakistan, reinforcing a long pattern where crises drive spending decisions. The rivalry between the two nuclear-armed states is defined by deterrent stability, but also by periodic shocks that test red lines. Each budgetary signal is read not just as defense planning, but as political messaging. Pakistan, for its part, operates with a far smaller economy, but a security establishment calibrated specifically around India. Any perception that India is rearming aggressively feeds counter-planning in Rawalpindi, even if New Delhi insists the increase is defensive. This action-reaction dynamic has long defined South Asian security, with limited space for error. Beyond Pakistan, China looms as a structural factor. India faces a technologically superior Chinese military along a contested Himalayan frontier. While this budget increase does not close that gap, it reflects India's awareness that its security challenges are no longer binary. Balancing two fronts requires resources, coordination, and credible logistics, not just headline numbers. One detail in the budget quietly signals shifting alignments. For the first time, there is no allocation for Iran's Chabahar port, a project once central to India's access to Afghanistan and Central Asia. Reports suggest pressure from the United States influenced the decision, highlighting how defense and foreign policy choices are increasingly intertwined. Stepping back from Chabahar narrows India's strategic options westward, while tightening alignment with Washington. What if the additional funds are absorbed efficiently? In that scenario, India could gradually restore squadron strength, improve ammunition reserves, and invest in surveillance and command systems. Over several years, this could enhance deterrence without dramatic escalation, stabilizing the region through clearer capability signals. But what if structural problems persist? If procurement delays, bureaucratic friction, and maintenance shortfalls continue, the increase could deliver limited operational benefit. Expectations would rise faster than capabilities, creating a credibility gap that adversaries might test rather than respect. There is also a third possibility. What if the spending fuels a perception of militarization without corresponding restraint? In that case, Pakistan could respond asymmetrically, China could harden positions along the border, and South Asia could see higher baseline tension even in the absence of open conflict. Globally, this budget is being watched as a measure of India's role in the emerging order. Partners see India as a counterweight in Asia, but credibility depends on real capability, not announcements. At the same time, investors and allies note that defense spending competes with social and economic priorities in a country still facing development challenges. Another layer shaping the impact of this decision lies inside India's defense industry itself. The government has promoted domestic manufacturing under self-reliance initiatives, aiming to reduce dependence on foreign suppliers. In theory, higher budgets should accelerate this transition. In practice, local firms still rely on imported engines, sensors, and electronics, meaning spending increases can flow outward rather than build internal capacity. This complicates claims that higher allocations automatically strengthen sovereignty. Budget composition also matters. A significant portion continues to be absorbed by salaries, pensions, and maintenance, limiting flexibility. Without reforms in personnel structure and logistics management, capital expenditure gains risk being diluted. This is why some observers argue that true modernization requires institutional change as much as financial commitment. The international response will hinge on outcomes rather than intentions. If India demonstrates measured capability growth, partners may deepen cooperation. If not, skepticism will grow. In a region where perception often drives behavior, the difference between deterrence and provocation can rest on details that rarely make headlines. As this unfolds, attention should remain on exercises, deployments, and diplomatic messaging, because those signals will clarify whether stability is being reinforced or quietly eroded beneath the surface. The answer will shape regional calculations long after this budget cycle fades from public debate. Those consequences may define South Asia's security trajectory for years to come. Watch the indicators closely.